I saw the collapse of Rover from the inside. I was part of the DTI assessment team for the 1985 corporate plan, which, against Maggie's judgment, was actually approved, gave Rover the K-series engine that prolonged its life. But despite government help, despite assistance from Honda, and despite assistance from BMW, Rover was never, ever going to ultimately survive. And that was one of the consequences of the arrival of the Japanese. I think, in retrospect, inviting the Japanese car companies to the UK was probably the most significant industrial policy decision of the Thatcher administration. And it also led to the withdrawal later on of Peugeot Citroën and of much of Ford's operations, although not entirely, because the Halewood plant became a Land Rover plant. At the same time, we did a big benchmarking study of the supply industry to mirror the study we'd done, The Machine That Changed the World, and that also revealed a big gap in the performance of the supply base. And with also an unfavorable exchange rate, ultimately many of those suppliers disappeared, moved abroad, and even Toyota struggled to find good enough suppliers in the main, not just in the UK but across Europe. So GKN was one of the survivors, and you understand why from the presentation that Peter Watkins gave yesterday. Really interesting how long it takes for the implications and the learning to feed back into strategy, to feed back into global redeployment of their production operations. Lean undoubtedly helped the survival of Jaguar from the very, very low point in 1991, when John Egan took over, kind of rescued it, and it also played a role when Ford took it over. There was a big lean program to basically give Jaguar a chance of playing again in the industry, and gradually came together with Land Rover, and Tata has now put in the investment in new models that is now growing. They just announced the other day they're going to add another 1,000 employees. So that's been a big success story. And Lean played a part in moving from a really craft-based, very unimpressive production operation to a very commendable, modern operation. The other thing that happened at the time was the bit of the parts department of Rover spun off into Unipart, and we set up a pioneering, first real serious company-wide attempt to deploy Lean across that business. The Unipart University was the first corporate university in the country and has had a big demonstration effect right across many, many other industries. Many, many of people have been to see what Lean can do by visiting Unipart. And of course, we've had a very successful Formula One industry for many years, demonstrating, again, a lot of very, very good Lean practices. So it's spread throughout the auto industry. But early on, the benchmarking study we did for Anderson Consulting, they funded it, led to the government recognizing that the critical thing to do was quickly to build a set of capabilities amongst the supply base to be able to rescue at least some of the suppliers, and also to build a capability and a cadre of people who could go out and teach others, spread this knowledge to other industries. So we set up the SMMT Industry Forum, which still exists, borrowed 2 engineers from Honda, Toyota, Nissan, and Volkswagen and General Motors to go and work deploying Lean in first, but primarily second and third tier suppliers. And that was very, very effective for many years and was later on extended to cover several other manufacturing industries. And it also led to the government developing a manufacturing strategy for the first time, really, that led to the establishment of the Regional Manufacturing Advisory Service in each of the major regions of the country. It still survives in a couple of places, but for a while was extraordinarily effective again at using guest engineers from industry to go into smaller companies that couldn't afford the consulting help that they needed to learn Lean, and I think was one of the most significant consequences of those early engagements with Lean in the auto industry.